What's up, Dragon Ballers, and welcome back to another complaining video. Alright guys, in all seriousness, welcome back to another video. I think it's actually going to be a little bit less complaining than you guys might be used to for me. Just a little bit though. So there's still going to be a tad bit of complaining, but basically what this video is meant to address is the state of the game post ARG Invitational 2019. I haven't done a specific state of the game video in actually like almost a year, which is kind of funny to me. I have talked about the format and different problematic cards in the format, but I think we have a lot of different cards being discussed on the community groups on Facebook. Just a bunch of posts about Battering Laser, a bunch of posts about minus Killie Zone, a bunch of posts about Mirror Creator Absorbed, and I kind of just want to give my opinion on all the cards. And I really think that we're in a great format. I want to preface this with that. I think we're in a great format considering where we've come from. We've come from Mecha Frieza, we've come from SS3, we've come from Super Shenron, and now post Super Shenron, this is where we are. Very diverse format. ARG Invitational 2019 had 9 different leaders in Top Cut. I do think that's a great place. However, I still think there are oppressive decks in the format, and maybe not oppressive in terms of they represent 50% of the field, they represent 50% of Top Cut, but certain decks in the format that make other decks unplayable. And personally, I'm not a fan of that. That whole kind of system. I think that certain cards are overpowered. I actually think that if certain cards weren't secret rares, if certain cards weren't $300 or more, I think that we would see a lot more of these decks in the field, because honestly, Victory Strike, it auto beats a lot of things. It beats any slow deck, it beats skillless, it beats so many things. If you never have to give your opponent advantage, and if they can't self-awaken, you'll just Victory Strike them at 8 life and you'll never give them a single piece of advantage, which I kind of think is a problematic system. And I do have a few options that I think would be able to fix that. Do I think they're going to be implemented? Probably not, because a lot of them do involve erratas, and I think Bandai is kind of done with erratas. They did errata Super Shenron, but what I would propose is probably way too many erratas for them to want to deal with. But besides that, I'm going to talk about some of the controversial cards in the format, cards that people are not a huge fan of, and give my opinion on it basically. So we're gonna start with the Broly leader. So the Broly leader is one of the best, if not the best, yellow leader. He has been pretty much since he came out. He pretty much outclassed Ginyu, outclassed all the other yellow leaders in terms of Shugesh swap leaders because of his insane abilities, right? So on the front side, he self-awakens, so you get to 4 whenever you want to. You awaken, you untap 2. He was the first untap 2 Frieza army leader, which also gave him that insane versatility with Cold Bloodlust, right? Then you have Broly the Awakened Threat, attack, draw a card, tap down any of your opponent's things once per turn, and his last activate main is take a life once per turn to restand any card. Any card, guys. I know you guys probably know what he does, but that's just been so insane over the past with Mirror Creator Absorbed, with restanding himself to draw additional cards, with Height of Mastery, with Victory Strike. This has been so insane, and I don't think Broly is at fault. I don't think most people think Broly is at fault, but the issue, I think, comes from an old design philosophy that I think Bandai is starting to kind of move out of that groove of. However, not in all cards. See the new Kaioken Goku coming out, but certain cards they made in the past have been a little bit too generic, and I think that is the overall problem with a lot of the cards that people think are problematic in the format. I think they're just a tad too generic. So I would propose some erratas to fix that, but we'll get more into that once we get into the specific details of cards later on. So first thing though that I want to start with, that I think would really change a lot of problems in the format. Notice how I said before that Victory Strike, Height of Mastery, even Gogeta Shenron, they make slow decks unplayable. If you can't win or do something incredibly impactful by turn 4, you're basically capped, and you cannot beat Gogeta Shenron, you cannot beat Victory Strike, because they're just going to meet their wing condition and is almost unbeatable, thanks to things like Deflect, thanks to things like tapping down your opponent's energy, thanks to things like triple attack, triple strike crit. You guys get the idea. Minus Killie Zone really puts a hinder on any ways to counterplay that, because we just got Mutaito, Skill of a Potato Sage. Mutaito is one of the best cards that we've gotten in the game by far, because it promotes interaction, it promotes answers, and these bomb cards like Gogeta Hero Revived, like Height of Mastery, Victory Strike, they should have answer cards, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of a lot of competitive players as well. And minus Killie Zone really just shuts that down. Almost every single deck in Top Cut was side decking Killie Zone, myself included, and all you know well that all the Shenron decks, all the Broly, Height of Mastery, Victory Strike decks were side decking Killie Zone, because the one card that actually can really hinder their strategy, it's not Crusher Ball, it's not Cold Bloodlust, it's Mutaito. And Victory Strike into the strategy really just turns that off and allows them to act unimpeded. Basically, before Mutaito, there was no answer to these cards. They were going to drop Victory Strike, they were going to drop Height first so that you couldn't Crusher Ball the Victory Strike, and then Gogeta Shenron, same idea I said before, triple attack, triple strike, critical, right? Mutaito Skill of a Sage introduced a way to deal with that. But now you see Top Cut, you see all these successful decks in Top Cut just add 2 minus Killy Zone to the side or main deck. And basically it does add an extra step. There is the argument to be made that it's only a 2 of minus Killy Zone. It's hard to see sometimes, which is true. However, in this game, the game that we love, Dragon Ball Super, it's one of the most consistent games probably ever. I mean, I don't know any other game that draws as much as we draw. Maybe Pokemon, but that game's already a super lack of interaction, which a lot of people don't like. So minus Killy Zone adds an extra step. You do have to fill your drop area appropriately to do this, and then, for example, keep your Dragon Balls to flip over with Shenron, or keep your pieces to bring back off World Peace, or activate Path to Greatness to swap ability. That does add an extra step, but it's not really that much of a hoop for these decks to jump through. Just to resolve minus Killy Zone, which is a 0 cost extra card, banish 3 from your drop area, draw 1. Your opponent cannot activate counterplay. So it goes a step further than Deflects. Deflects saying the card's unaffected by counterplay. It says your opponent cannot activate counterplay in general. I think that's one of the most problematic cards in the format, because if you got rid of minus Killy Zone, this answer, Mutaito, would just absolutely work. It would just help these control decks, these slower decks. It would buy them a turn. It would basically guarantee you the ability to get to turn 5. So if I was able to Mutaito without worry of Killy Zone, sure, go GS7 me. You'll rip my hand to 3. I'll get 3 random cards. You won't be able to kill me that turn, so I'll still be set back. I'll still be set back by your pretty insane effect that still has Deflect, that can't be cold bloodlusted, but at least I'll get 1 extra turn to try and play the game, right? Mutaito just adds that invaluable part to the game. Same thing with Hidden Mastery Victory Strike. You might tap me out, you might tap down my battle cards, but I'm going to Mutaito you, tap your guy. You don't even have to go into Victory Strike on that turn if you don't want to, because you know that you're not gonna be able to swing with it. Even then, you could go into Victory Strike, because once you evolve Hidden Mastery into a Victory Strike, Broly recognizes it as a new card and is then able to restand it. But what does that do though? It means you're not able to restand an energy for Battering Laser. It means you're not able to swing a Victory Strike twice. So even then, Mutaito still just gives you a little bit more of a fighting chance that Killy Zone absolutely just says no to. So in my opinion, I think Killy Zone's a huge problem. I think if we got rid of Killy Zone, I think that the format would be I don't know, maybe more healthy. I think the format's already relatively healthy because of diversity, and I honestly think that, like I said before, the SCR price tag is keeping people away from those decks because they just, you know, relatively can't afford it. Not a lot of people want to pay $300 for 1 card, so I do think that's helping the field right now. I do think though, if these cards were ever to get reprinted, or if somehow the price came down, I do think that these decks would see a lot more play. And I do think in the hands of the best players, these decks are going to dominate, because like I said, they have auto win matchups. And personally, and I think a lot of people can agree with this, I'm not a fan of auto win matchups. I'm okay with favorable and unfavorable matchups, and maybe you can have some sideboard tech or mainboard tech to help you in those matchups, but unwinnable matchups never feel good. They're not skillful, and it's just a sucky way to lose, whether it's in Swiss and Top Cut. A matchup that your deck cannot physically beat, like 90, I'm talking about 90% lose rate, is it doesn't feel good. So minus Killy Zone, in my opinion, is the one card that I think would fix a lot of things, because it would push these decks back, these turn 4 OTK decks, as I've called them in the past. It would push them back to turn 5. But I talked about Killy Zone enough. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. We're gonna move on. So this is almost a response to Sensu Pop talking about Shugesh and Time Control Cronoa. I really liked your video a lot. I thought it was really cool how you brought in the math and the equations to kind of show why Cronoa isn't a great answer to Shugesh. And I kind of liked your compromise of banning Shugesh to 1, because it still gives these yellow sand decks a powerful card, but it, you know, makes it a 1 of, almost like the 1 of 3 drop Cell. But however, the problem with that is, in my opinion, it makes it a little bit more sacky. But then again, what is sacky in this game when your game is ultra consistent, right? Like androids, they don't draw a crap ton of cards like most decks do, but Broly Hidden Mastery with Roshi Shen, they do draw a whole lot of cards, right? And Shugesh is searchable by Planet Vegeta, which is, you know, if they do search it with Planet Vegeta, that's a telltale cell that they have their 1 Shugesh in the deck. I like that compromise. I can see Shugesh going to 1. It would put Cronoa in a weird spot, because then are you going to play the Cronoa for the 1 of Shugesh? Probably not. You'll probably just play around it, because after they use the 1, whether they use it offensively or defensively on one of your smaller threats, I think Cronoa would probably stop seeing play. I really like the compromise of Shugesh to 1. I like that a lot. So one thing I want to talk about that's really funny to me is that Green Broly is not really in the talks of being broken anymore. You know, a lot of people used to be on the train of turn 2 SCR, absolutely broken. However, there's ways you don't play into it, which I think people are starting to learn over time. The other thing too is that Broly is not seeing a lot of representation in Top Cut. It's seeing a decent amount of rep in Swiss. I think it was the 4th or 5th most rep deck in this past Swiss at the ARG Invitational, but it's not getting that same hate it used to get. It's not getting that same turn 2 SCR hate, and I think that's for a good reason, because the deck is so easily answerable with side deck. You know, just one card I pulled out, for example, being Bardock Fully Unleashed, just able to answer all their Broly's on the board. You know, you have Dimensional Banisher Fu, you have other forms of removal that just deal with it, the Demigrok combo card. And I think that's really funny because what my point is this basically is the turn 4 OTK decks, they're not really impinged by a lot. My skillless build was very aggressive, but I had a few things had to go right for me to kill them on turn 3, right? A few things had to go right for me to get under their curve. Green Broly can definitely do that in game 1. You can definitely turn 2 Seeker or someone. You can definitely turn 3 Seeker or someone, maybe relatively consistently, but the deck is answered so easily post sideboard. And that just goes to say that aggro, as time has gone on, has taken a lot of hits here and there. Me playing skillless, again, I saw a lot of striving to be the best on Goku. I saw a lot of Crisis Crusher, and these decks just have a lot of stall tools that allow them to get to that turn 4 OTK, as it were. So I think that Green Broly isn't in the best spot to answer these decks because it is so easily answerable post sideboard. Maybe other aggressive decks can come out of the woodwork to really put these turn 4 OTK decks on a clock, basically. But people were still trying to play Shenron Gogeta in Storm format. It saw a little bit of success, but Storm truly was the aggro deck that was able to take it out of the format. But now we have so many answers to aggro, where decks like Gogeta Shenron, Broly Victory Strike, and even Janemba, maybe we'll see a resurgence because of how much defense and how much aggro has been hindered. Not saying that aggro doesn't exist, but like I said, Broly pretty easily answerable, swap in its entirety. Now it's just the hype package. It's not really an aggro package anymore. So one thing I wanted to mention. Next up, I want to talk about Mirror Creator Absorbed, another incredibly powerful card that maybe is a bit unbalanced. Like I said, you add that with Broly Leader. You add that with Battering Laser, you add that with Furthering Destruction Champa, that's a guaranteed 2 to 4 damage that your opponent's going to take that they can't counter, and there's absolutely no shot they're out comboing it unless they're playing Herculeater, and even then it's going to be pretty close. So, with that being said, Mira is an issue. However, it's the entire win condition to the new Toa deck that we saw on Top Cut of the ARG Invitational. Without this card, Toa pretty much has 0 win condition, which would be kind of problematic. So here's where one of my erratas comes in. Make this card playable maybe in Black Leaders only, maybe in Toa or Android Leaders only. That would even give green Android leaders an alternate win condition next to Cell Chain. Just go in for a huge double strike because Androids are kind of hurting right now. Who knows what kind of support they're going to get in the future. However, I do think that this could see an errata of Toa leader or Android leader only. I think it would fix a lot of problems because, like I said, back in the old Storm days, this was the top end and there's no restriction on it. There's a restriction on the pieces that you absorb into it, but we don't really care about that. You're just overwhelming into it for 1 energy, and only a 4 cost overwhelm is actually really easy to get into. Maybe if it was an overwhelm 7, it'd be a little more difficult, but I digress. Next up, Gogeta 7. Everyone knows this is my favorite card in the entire game, but honestly, as time has gone on, I've started to mine this less and less. If you guys follow the channel for a while, you know I used to play Broly Storm. Basically, I only play that deck just to counter this deck because I hated it so much. Even my skillless deck can beat it. I did take a match off of it in Swiss, but in Top Cut, I did feel the helplessness of just not being able to do anything. That was with them going first, seeing everything. I didn't see the optimal aggro, and I couldn't do anything to them by turn 4, and that just doesn't feel good. Like I said, that triple strike, triple attack crit does not feel good. This is one of the cards that makes me think Killy Zone is the problem, because if I could successfully Mutaito this next turn, use some piece of barrier removal to get rid of it, I would feel a whole lot better about the format. And even if they needed to wait till turn 6, even if they wanted to wait till turn 6 to drop this with Battering Laser, I'd be okay with that, because again, I get that extra turn to try and beat them before they beat me, right? Next up, we'll talk about height, path, and victory strike. So one thing I want to preface with is people know that I like Baby Vegeta. People ask me all the time what I think about the deck. I tell them I think it has a good height and mastery victory strike matchup because you have Self Awaken. You can wait for them to tap you out with height. You can awaken, untap 2, use 2 revenge death balls, right? But the issue comes again with things being too generic, because with the path height victory strike deck with Broly, you have alternate wing additions, one being Mirror Creator Absorbed, one being somewhat of a 2-drop aggro going with dependable Gokus and Gines. You have alternate wing conditions that make the deck a bit unfair and a bit overpowered. Maybe it could be knocked down a peg. And again, this deck doesn't necessarily have the representation to say it's overpowered, to say it's too strong, but this is partially my opinion, partially the opinions of others. And again, I think the deck is held back by the SCR price tag, but I digress. So with that being said, I've said this time and time again. I really would like to see path, height, maybe not victory strike, but those 2 cards specifically hindered to lineage leaders only. I've said this for so long. Swap is an incredibly powerful skill, and over time they've been nerfing it by banning Goten, banning Bardock. But I think what they could have done is errated all cards that say Goku's lineage on them. You can only play this card if your leader's a Goku's lineage. Honestly, I think if they do that, I think you can unban Bardock and unban Goten, as crazy as it might sound, you know. Basically what I think is you're putting an insanely powerful engine, being the path height engine, into a very mediocre leader. Your leader's not restanding a battle card to attack again. Your leader can't use Cold Bloodlust, things of that nature. You either have a Hirudegarn-esque lineage leader, or a crit lineage leader, or a self-awakening Bardock lineage leader. All of which have their pros and cons, but they're not nearly as powerful as Broly the Awakened Threat. So, in my opinion, I think that would fix a lot of things too. Again, that's another errata that I don't really think they're going to do, but I think it would fix a whole lot of issues in the format. Next up, I want to talk about Battering Laser, another card that people have discussed potentially getting banned. This card, it's in a weird spot for me. A lot of formats, I feel like it's not really all that great. I feel like it helps these decks that already have OP win cons like height. They're tapping you out anyway, and if you somehow manage to sparking negate, well, yeah, that's kind of sucks. But Battering Laser is in a weird spot because I do think it's kind of degenerate when you add it with things like Mira, when you add it with things like Victory Strike. However, like I said, defensive decks, stalled decks, like Nimbus decks, like Broly can be, like Janemba basically, I think Battering is almost necessary to combat those types of decks. So I'm in a weird spot on Battering. I'm not quite sure if I think it needs to be banned or if it's relatively healthy for the game, because it is pretty steeply costed, because it does cost you a card out of your hand, but that one yellow energy usually isn't the hardest cost to meet. And as my teammate Pat O'Neill says, offense should be more heavily costed than defense, and I can agree with that. Battering Laser does have an additional yellow discard cost, but it is a little bit strong. But I don't necessarily know if I think this card's broken or not. But back to the minus kill zone thing real quick. Cold Bloodlust, Crusher Ball, Mutaito. I don't think answer cards should be so easily answered, which is kind of a funny thing to say, right? You know, if you guys played Yu-Gi-Oh, Effect Failure is not broken, right? Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring might be a little bit more of a controversial one, but competitive players I think will tell you that card's not broken. So I don't think minus kill zone to stop Cold Bloodlust, to stop Mutaito. I don't think that card should stick around. If I had to ban any card in this list, it would probably be minus kill zone, and then the appropriate erratas would follow. But let me know what you guys think about my opinions down in the comments below. What do you guys think about the format? I do think we're in a better format than Super Shenron. That's almost a money back guarantee. But I do think we're in a relatively good format, and I think the SCR price tags do hinder some of these decks from being repped. I do think the decks are beatable, but like I said, a little bit tough. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Joey. This is Crossworld TCG, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
What's up, Dragon Ballers? Danny Win here. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and maybe one day if you keep watching Joey's videos, you could play as good as me.